Hello, everyone. Okay. Are we live now, Jin? Yes, Ji. Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. How are you today? Can you hear me well? Well, we have a chat box, so feel free to just, type in anything in the chat box and we can see. We'll start the session shortly in 5 minutes. Hello, V. How are you? I hope you guys having a the weather was really nice. Not really nice today, but I hope that you guys are having a great day. And today, very pleased to have Mr. Minh Vũ, a rate trader from HSBC Vietnam, to come and share with us his experience and knowledge in forex market and global markets in Vietnam. We'll start very soon. So for now, if you have any questions or anything, then you'd like to share, then feel free to type in the chat box. Anyone from Hanoi campus? Oh, how can I mute my microphone? I think there is, there is a button, with the microphone, and then you can just simply hit the button, and then you can mute your microphone. Hi, Jill. How can I help you, Jill? Hi, Jill. Good morning. Okay, yeah. So this is a live event, so do not worry, we cannot hear you, so you don't have to mute your mic. Good morning, Thư. Thư. Yes, yes, we will be recording the session, so you can watch again. I hope everything is good with your assessment. Assessment 2, foreign market forex report. Today, Mr. Minh will also talking about a forex market, and then feel free to ask him any questions about, the global market, the foreign exchange market. Okay, I think we shall start now. Welcome to Financial Market Industry Talk, everyone. It is my great honor to introduce with you the presenter today, Mr. Vũ Bình Minh, rate trader from HSBC Vietnam. Let me just briefly introduce about Mr. Minh, and then he will be presenting for about 30 minutes. After that, we'll have Q&A session. Mr. Minh is a seasoned financial market trader with expertise expanding across various asset classes, including foreign exchange, money market, fixed income, and capital market. He currently works at HSBC Vietnam Global Market Department in charge of rate trading desk. So Minh is responsible for making market and VND rate products such as government bonds, bills, and derivatives instruments such as interest rate swap, cross-currency swap to trade and provide financial solutions for both corporate and institutional clients. Prior to rejoining HSBC in 2017, he was head of fixed income at Orient Commercial Bank and acted in a number of trading roles within Treasury Department of other commercial banks. Minh holds a Master of Business Administration from University of Boston, UK, and earned his bachelor degree with honor from London School of Economics and Political Science. He is a current member of Chartered Financial Analyst, CFI Institute, and a trading representative of Hanoi Stock Exchange. Outside of professional work, Min is an active corporate sustainability volunteer with areas of interest in environmental and underprivileged children. So we are just so pleased to have Mr. Min today to share with us his valuable experience and knowledge in global market in Vietnam. So please welcome Mr. Min, everyone. Over to you, Min. Thank you.
Hey, hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Miss Ling, for the introduction, and big thanks for having today's session. And thanks everyone who are joining. I know this is holiday seasons, so I really appreciate you guys being here today. And I am also very grateful for the opportunity to do the presentation today. Actually, when Miss Ling first asked me to do this session, I was kind of more in favor of making this like an exchange session where everyone can, enjoy and actually exchange ideas to ask questions and maybe have a little bit of like an informal discussion about the industry. But since your dear lecturer insisted me of doing a presentation, I will try to make it really short and concise so that we can have plenty of time for Q&A at the end. As Ms. Ling briefly mentioned about myself, as a way of introduction, I am currently working at HSBC Vietnam Global Markets Department as a rate trader. And I've been in the market for more than 10 years with focus in trading and investment. Can we move to next slide, please? Okay, when you first hear a global market, some of you may wonder what does it function or who are the people in this department. As a matter of fact, global market was actually my first workplace out of university when I started my career. Not my actual full-time job, but more like an intern for the sales team. And I don't know if this applies to anyone else, but when I graduated, to be honest, I don't really know much about the different functions of HSBC as a bank. I recall when I got out of university and started to apply for an internship with the bank, the HR department actually got back and asked me which department that I am interested to work in. And at that time, I had to like look up on the internet for the bank's list of department, and then immediately got curious about these global markets because somehow it sounds kind of fancy to me. Sounds like somewhere I could maybe work globally and to be able to travel around the world or something like that. Actually, when I did join, I realized that it turned out not the way that I imagined at all. About the traveling, actually, I had to like stick to my desk for maybe 8 to 10 hours a day, looking at a bunch of monitor screens with my boss behind my back, and not to mention very little travel involved. However, somehow I think it's still kind of true to the fact that it's exciting because I get to work with many colleges in different countries and regions. Here, to save you from the experience that I had, here on the slide is what represent the structure of the global market team. It's actually quite linear and simple in terms of organization structure. We have quite a lean team, which breaks down into 3 smaller sub-teams with separate mandates. We have trading, sales, and balance sheet management, also known as BSM. For the trading team, it basically breaks down to the fundamental of investment, which is buy low and sell high on apparently anything. So for us as traders, we deal mostly with interbank market, where other traders from other different banks, both local and foreign banks, trade with each other and provide pricing, make market in many types of instruments like foreign exchange, government bonds, swap products, etc. And we make money from capturing the market movements and also from the bid-ask spreads. For example, a trader like me or my teammate, from his own analysis, maybe can forecast that USD VND currency pair may increase due to some macro factors or maybe the supply demand balance that we can observe on the market, and then we can choose to buy dollar from the market, and then we will later on sell it back when the price of the currency pair actually gets higher, and then in order to make a profit. That is a very basic example of the trading type, and there are many other techniques, much more complicated ones, and I won't discuss too much in details here. But what I can say is that this role requires a lot of risk management skill, as you need to deal with many fast-moving components and under a lot of pressures from both internal and external counterparties. Next is the sales team. For the sales, we normally split into smaller sub teams serving different group of clients. We have the corporate sales who serve on the corporate side, such as the multinational companies, also called the MNCs, the large corporates, and also the medium enterprises. And on the other hand, we also have the institutional sales who provide sales service to more sophisticated clients like financial companies, funds, insurance companies, securities companies, those kind of companies. And on a day-to-day basis, sales team will work more like a middleman, connecting clients with traders to meet the client's demand. So it's understandably the largest group in global markets with the most number of headcounts. And comes to the third team is called the balance sheet management. In some other banks, this is sometimes called assets and liability management, or ALM. And as the name suggests, the role of this desk is to manage the mismatch in funding and duration of asset and liabilities of the bank. So it's a very important team and very powerful one. And usually from trading ourselves, we have to get funding from BSM to fund for our position as well. Next slide, please. All right, so now we have a broader picture of who we are. So on this slide is what we actually do. In terms of product, each line of business also work in many type of investment products. Within trading team, we have the foreign exchange desk who cover FX products like FX spot, forward, FX swap, and we also have the rates desk, which I'm currently running, where we offer government bonds and bills trading, and derivative products and many types of swap trading. In BSM, since this team works on the surplus or the deficit of the bank's funding, so the products involve mainly interbank loans and borrowings, and also a certificate of deposits, which is also a type of borrowing. Here I want to emphasize that although we have separate lines of business, which we work in different products, but actually there are no hard boundaries between us, and collaboration is very important. Sometimes within trading, we can maybe come up with a more complex structure which combine a few products together to provide to client as a bundle solution for their needs. For example, I can get an example like for a client who has a loan with the bank in US dollar, they will have the needs for both the FX spot to convert the USD loan to Vietnamese dong for their expense purpose, and at the same time they also need a hedging solution for their loan exposure, so that maybe they can do it by entering into a cross currency swap, so that they can fix in advance the required cash flow to repay the loan in the future. For this, in this example, we can see that both the FX and rates desk together with sales, we can maybe come up with a package to offer to client. Next slide, please. So in this slide is a complete view of standard transaction flow under global market team passing through almost all the desks. So, for example, we have a client being maybe an exporter or importer, or maybe a MNC company who has a specific demand. For example, like to convert their VND revenue to dollar to repatriate back to their group headquarters in overseas. Then they will inform sales team, and then sales will then act like middleman to get the pricing from traders' quotes and then provide this pricing back to clients. And once the trade is done, traders will then need to manage the position from the the home portfolio perspective to buy and sell with other bank traders to either square up the risk or to make a profit based on the pricing difference. Behind the scene of this flow, there are also some other functions of the bank who will also get involved as well. For example, we have the BSM team who provide the funding to trading team to manage the position. We have the back office or the operations team who will issue the contract to the client and ensure the cash is settled. Then the risk team will monitor traders' position to ensure that we don't take any excessive risk or to breach any risk limits. Then we also have compliance and legal team involved to make sure that we treat our customers fairly and adequately, meaning that we don't rip off our clients by maybe overcharging them or front-ending them. So by looking at this slide, I hope that shed some light to all of you on how an actual transaction works in global markets. Next slide, please. Okay, all right. Here I want to show you how what the trading floor looks like. However, due to confidentiality reason, I cannot show you my actual trading floor, but I try to find the most relevant picture here. And similar to trading floors in other countries or other banks, our trading floor is also often busy with screens and monitors and telephones, other and equipments, etc. And we often sit in rows like this by each desk. And I think that the trading floor is actually, the most restricted place in the bank. Well, actually, the second most restricted place in the bank, besides the bank's vaults, of course. And also, there are many strict requirements given that the business involves in a lot of material, non-public information. For some of the requirements, like only authorized persons can get access to the floor, and traders will also need to sit separately from other desks to avoid exchanging of confidential information. We are also not allowed to use mobile phones or any electronic devices on the floor as well. So that would really be a problem for the ladies who do online shopping a lot. Since most of the work are now digitalized, you will not hear people screaming like you often see on movies about Wall Street or something like that. But I think it remains quite a fast-moving environment, where people are excellent at multitasking. A salesperson, maybe he or she can be on the phone with a client and at the same time looking at the price popping on their screen and then chat with trader for market color or something like that. And that also explains why we need so many monitor screens in order to work efficiently. Next slide, please. All right, here I want to dive a little deeper into the trader's desk. We usually call it the trading pit. And here is also a very good representation of my desk. Similar to people on either other teams, a trader like myself often require a few 3 to 4 screens to work efficiently. We need at least 2 screens for the trading terminal, usually Bloomberg terminal as displayed here, and sometimes we also use the Thomson Reuters icon as a substitution. And then we need other monitors to work on a spreadsheet model, to work with sales, and of course, to read some cabbage news at the end of the day. And in terms of trading strategy, I think for a trader, he or she would typically rely on various factors to set out a trading strategy, maybe from fundamental analysis as top-down approach, where one would look at macroeconomic indicators like GDP, the consumer price index, CPI, trade balance, etc., to set out a medium to long-term trend. And then to work with technical analysis as we look at historical data and charts to work out on the short-term trend as well. By short-term trend here, I mean it could mean a half a day trend or maybe intraday or sometimes even a week for something cyclical. So as you can see, there are a lot of things that you need to watch out for as a trader. Next slide, please. Okay, right. Here I want to spend a bit more time to talk a bit about what keeps you motivated to work as a trader and as a member of the global market, and what skills do you need to do the job well, and why is it exciting? Is the job exciting? And is it exciting to work in treasury function? I think there are four main reasons. The first is what you're working on is important. So you're hired by the bank to basically manage its investment portfolio to generate the excess returns in, and more importantly, to help clients to achieve their objectives in terms of whether, hedging their currency exposures or meeting their funding demands or maybe to fulfill their foreign currency payments. So by definition, it is very important. And by doing the job well, you can actually create values for the clients, and as a result you will generate returns for the bank either directly by trading the product with the market or indirectly by getting the fees or the awards that the clients will give back to you. Second, what you do is can actually make a difference, delivering impact to the market, and with your expertise in the field, by your decision, either by selling or buying something, can actually drive the values of the assets, because you know that every assets are correlated with each other to some degree, and the growth of the assets will lead to the growth of the economy in overall. Also, as I'm not sure if I mentioned earlier, but Treasury or global markets captures almost like a third of the bank's revenues, and we can do that with the least amount of people. So actually, the success of the bank in terms of financial performance can, rely on you. So I think it's exciting to work in this field because it's important and you can make a difference. The third reason that the job is exciting is because it is dynamic. Um, every working day is different, and the financial market is constantly evolving 24/7 around the clock, and it is moving even faster now in the digital age. So you don't have to worry about dragging yourself to work expecting the same routines, or because the market is changing every day, and in fact every minute. In If any of you have experience in stock investment or in the stock market, then you expect the same for treasury, because as the FX prices or the bond prices keep changing all the time, and every deal is different. We have this client A who is willing to sell US dollar at certain rate, and then we have this client B who is willing to buy bond at this yield, and even within a deal it can change in different ways. So when you work on a transaction, you have this trade idea, and then I think the timing to execute the trade idea is very, very important. And during that time, a lot can happen that might affect the outcome of your trade, and you have to constantly watch out for these factors to, adjust for your position accordingly in order to, either win the most profit or stop the loss in time, and then from trade to trade is also entirely different. The counterparty, the trade size, the structure, and the pricing, they are all different. So it actually never gets old and it never gets boring. And I think that's fun, and I think that's the fun part of it. So it's exciting because it's dynamic, and even if you think about the first two reasons that I mentioned earlier about, it's important, it's making a difference, even if you don't buy into that, I think at least you can trust me on this one because it's very vibrant and very energetic. I take this chance to let me share with you a true story of mine. Actually, my first full-time job was not in treasury, not in the global market space. I actually started my career as a financial operation assistant, and my job back then was to reconcile financial accounts. And the job is very routine, and I actually get bored very quickly, especially after I had the chance that to be an intern in global markets previously and watch all the actions in place. So I left that finance job after just a year. um, but some people may like that job because it's stable, but maybe it was just not for me because it lacks the activeness, the dynamic of the trading job. Um, so that comes to the fourth reason why the job is exciting is because it's very intense. You need a lot of time and energy to focus on a lot of things at the same time. And for every deal, you have to follow it from when you open the position until you close it out. And there are a lot of deals going on at the same time, which also involves a lot of people. um, you need to focus on the fundamentals to analyze the trend and set yourself up on the trade ideas, and then you have to work with sales to pitch that ideas to clients in need, while on the other hand also needs to understand the clients needs to customize the trades to meet the client's demand. And even when the client is buying into your deal, the trade is live, you still need to work with operation and back office to ensure that the deal is properly booked and the fund is transferred to and received from the counterparty. And you also need to keep compliance informed. So to be very honest, the job is actually very rewarding, but in return, it is extremely challenging and intense and will demand a lot of your efforts and commitments. So to sum it up, I think the job is exciting because it's important. What you're working on is important, and you can make a difference. It's exciting because it's dynamic and it keeps changing every day, and because it's very intense. Next slide, please. So, what skills do I think are necessary to do the job well? First, interpersonal skills. By this, I don't mean that you need to be friend with everyone and have to like everyone, but rather you need to have the ability to work well with different stakeholders. It's important that you have the ability to, convey your clients that you are competent, so that they can trust you with their money. And building trust is the most difficult thing, yet also the most important thing in any business. And for internal stakeholders, meaning people at other teams, other departments, interpersonal skill also plays very important role, which helps you to, get them to help you. Second, quantitative skills. Um, I think you do not need to have been a math major or physics major, but I think you need to be comfortable with numbers because the vast majority of your time as a trader is to crunch on numbers to, identify the intrinsic value of the asset. And if you are not excellent at math, like myself, then that's okay too. But then you need to pick up other skills to fill up the gap. For example, you need to master Excel to at least let it does the math for you. So quantitative may sound frightening to some of you, but what I mean is more about the logical reasoning. And as long as you are able to work out the logics behind every concept, I think you can do well in this field. Um, Thirdly, you need to have ethics in doing business, be professional, and be discreet with what you work. Um, I am certain that you will be given confidential information that's very valuable. And please make sure that you don't want to talk about that outside the trading floor or even with someone on the same team but is not working on the deal. And by being professional, you need to treat your clients fairly and on a reasonable basis. And you have a duty to client, a duty to your employer as well. So you need to place them before your own interests. You may read on the newspapers there are many examples of people do all kind of things like insider trading and or front running their clients on that sort of thing. But honestly, I think that you can only have short-term gain over the long-term pain that you have to face. So just be authentic and to stay on top of anything that you do, then the money will just show up. Fourth, I think I'm not showing this point on this slide, but just want to add in is that you need to be comfortable with taking on challenges. If you want to have a stable 9 to 5, no drama, no hiccups, that's totally fine. But then you can get an HR role or back office role, something like that. It doesn't mean that that job is not good. I am not trying to downplay those roles, but that's the difference in the nature of the job. So if you like facing new challenges and like to problem solving things, then a trading job might be the right job for you. Fifth in my list and the fourth point in this slide is, and I think this applies to any other job, just not to trading, is that you to learn to be a learner. And you are a student at your university now, but you also want to be a student when you first start out of this career. Try to learn as much as you can from as many people as you can in the first few years of your career, and that will help you build a very strong foundation and will certainly get you higher and more importantly faster in the career ladder. Find a mentor, find a work buddy, and join the company's training programs, learn on the job, and take up some extra courses to fill up your gaps. And that will help you jumpstart your ability to do the job effectively. And by doing so, I think that you can take control of and have the confidence in whatever you do. Next slide, please. Okay, so 5 minutes of advertisements. This is some fun facts and frequently asked questions about global markets in Vietnam. And you can see the stats here on the slide. 150 are the years of presence of HSBC in Vietnam. Number one is the number of, we have the largest market share in terms of FX amongst the foreign banks. We are also the number one in terms of revenue contribution per headcount for global markets within the bank. We have huge amount of FX trades per month, over 2,000, and also plenty of number of systems to keep up of more than 20. So that comes to the end of my presentation. Sorry, I don't know if Ms. Ling would like to have any comments. Otherwise, we can go straight to the Q&A.
Yeah.
And yeah, happy to take on your questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Min, for your insights. It's just really, fantastic to hear about your sharing. You know what? Let me just share with you about the course financial market at RMIT. Recently, the student also had a trading session. So it's like a simulated FX trading floor than we were doing in the lab. And then we'll break students into different groups. Some of them are banks and some of them are corporation. And then banks are market maker, just like what you are doing. And then corporation will be price or market taker. And then banks also, have to call a bid and ask, and then deal with corporation. So we simulate what is in the real world in our classroom. So I think that students are just really excited, and I was just really happy to hear about your insight, just really practical and relevant to what we are doing at the moment. Now I have two questions for you, but then I think I just give it one question because I see the students are just really excited. They ask so many questions here. So I'm just wondering, when you make market like Ray for bonds or code bid ask, for example, for FX market, then do you have any, benchmark or sort of benchmark, and then you can base on the benchmark to make your own code? Like what did you make market? How can you make market?
Yes, for the local market, yes, we do have some benchmarks for both the FX and rates market. These benchmarks are normally contributed by market makers and are monitored by an independent third party like Bloomberg or Reuters. For VND interest rate, we have the VNIBOR, well, which is something similar to the famous dollar LIBOR, and that is a benchmark for the short-term VND interest rate. For FX, we also have the uh, VND FX01 from Reuters, which published daily at 11 o'clock. That is a benchmark for the USD VND FX market. However, since these benchmark are submission based, so most of them are just for reference only and not to trade. Also, with the LIBOR transition after the uh, LIBOR fixing scandal, and other countries also started to move to transition based benchmark. In Vietnam, locally, we also have a plan to move to something called the VND ONIA. That's still in plan, but it is based on actual transaction done, so it will be more relevant to the market. Back to your questions about how we make market. Normally for both FX and bonds, we maintain some inventory to stand ready to buy and sell with interbank counterparties and to clients
Yeah.
to serve client flows. We will have, for example, for bonds, we have a bunch of bonds in different maturities sitting in our books, and we will show two-way codes, meaning that we show the bid and ask codes to the market, and we continuously update those codes based on the market forces. If more people are hitting the bid, then I need to lower that bid price, or more people, similarly, if more people are hitting the ask, then I need to increase the ask price accordingly. So that bid ask price is constantly changing, and I need to ensure that the desk has enough ammunition, I mean enough inventory to provide liquidity to both buyer and seller of either FX or bonds.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. So now let's start with the question from the students. I have so many here. So let's start with the first one. Um, so which department at bank, in your opinion, is most suitable for interns? I guess this is quite general, but then let's just frame it for finance students. I would say, or yeah. What do you think? Most suitable for interns?
Well, thank you for your question. I think to start off as an intern, I think you can start basically anywhere. As I mentioned, you let's try to learn as much as you can, and as from as many people as you can. With a finance background, I think the most suitable one is, obviously is with finance and global markets, and those middle office roles like risk management. I think it will help you to gain valuable skills and to to add up to your knowledge from universities, and will help you to go in the longer run.
Yeah. Thank you very much. The next question is, can you give us your opinion on the investment opportunity in Vietnam? For example, ETF, mutual fund, hedge fund, or venture capital. So this is a little bit more about investment. You have any opinion on that? Mutual fund, hedge fund, or venture capital in Vietnam? Any thought about investment opportunity in these products and in the things?
You mean working in those
Investment opportunity. Your opinion on the investment opportunity of mutual fund, hedge fund, and venture capital in Vietnam?
I think in terms of regulation, the Vietnam market is quite restricted. The State Bank of Vietnam, they place a lot of restriction in terms of products that we provide to clients, and that the products that we are able to do. So at the moment, we can only do some very vanilla products, not too complex one. And we also have very strict requirements in terms of supporting documents for clients to entering into any deals. So I think in compared with markets in other countries or in the regions like Malaysia or Philippines or Indonesia, we are still behind them because we are very restricted in terms of regulations, and in terms of product, which comes to the next point is the product development is still behind other peers. So
Yeah.
the investment space here in Vietnam is still quite condensed. We
Mm.
have we don't have a true investment banking yet in Vietnam.
Mm.
We only have the investment bank of a commercial bank.
Yeah.
I mean the investment team of the commercial bank who do the investment, who do most of the investment for using the bank's capital and the clients' capital. And we also have the participation from some mutual funds, some but not hedge funds, just some mutual funds and
Yeah.
security companies, some insurance companies, but also again the products is quite limited. So I think there are still a lot of opportunity to to expand the market in the future, both in terms of market participation and also in terms of products that we do. So yeah, I think the prospect is very good
Mm.
because um, in the next few years, the government they have already put in a plan to move the Vietnam market to from a frontier market into
Mm.
emerging market status,
Yeah.
which is EM status. And
Mm.
yeah, that's work in progress, and I think that will realize very soon.
Yeah, thank you very much. I totally agree. Like hedge fund will be more popular in developed country like the US market. Here in Vietnam, then as far as I know, then it's not that, popular because it is quite risky. And like what you just said, then we at the like we are Vietnamese market is considered as a frontier market. So we move forward like emerging market, then a lot of opportunity will open up for investor. Okay, thank you. Then another question from um, a student about derivative markets. So, what do you think about the derivative market in Vietnam in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, that's a very long horizon.
Yeah.
I think let's start with the past 5 to 10 years of the market where I've been
Mm.
working in. The development of the derivative market is quite slow, to be honest. We still do very vanilla products like VND IRS, the interest rate swap. We have the USD VND cross currency swap. But in terms of market liquidity, it is quite shallow in compared to FX spot or FX forwards because of two reasons. I think the first one is what I said earlier is about the regulations. I think the Vietnam market, the regulator, the experience from the past, we have the Asian financial crisis and we have the housing bubbles in 08 and 10, which crashed the market. And the regulators they are very worried about something similar happening again if they open up too much of the capital market. So they put in a lot of restriction in place to prevent the speculation or to from the hot money of foreign flows. So that really restrict to only the the end users of the products like companies or the ones who really have the hedging demand for their exposures. So that comes to my second reason is that the end users in Vietnam markets are normally small or medium enterprises or maybe sometimes medium enterprises. And usually for those clients, they don't have a hedging policy in place and they have very little knowledge about hedging. So the demand is also not very high because they are not aware of the importance of hedging using the derivatives. So at HSBC, we constantly provide update to clients and um, even show them some training and materials to try to develop the market. So I think that in the next 5 to 10 years, as the economy, the Vietnam economy is growing in general, and the capital market is expanding, and there will certainly be more opening up of the market. And in fact that I'm not sure if you're aware that the State Bank of Vietnam this year they have been issuing quite a number of reform regulations in
Mhm.
terms of derivatives. I can say that here is the circular 15 or the circular 01 defining the derivatives and FX market, which
Yeah,
create more chances for foreign investor to invest in
that's
Vietnam.
great. Mm.
Yes. So I think it's moving, but in a slower progress that we expected. But um, at least it still gets moving. So um,
Yeah,
I hope that in not 10 years, but at least the next 5 years, we will
yeah.
see significant difference compared to today.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, derivative market, even though it is new, but I believe that it is quite important for firms, especially for hedging purposes. Especially those firms that working with, foreign counterpartners, in terms of FX, foreign currency as well. So, guys, we're gonna study a derivative market next week. So,
Good luck, guys.
yeah, good luck, guys. Well, I'm sure that you love it. And as is mentioned by Mr. Min today, that the derivative market now, not many people are aware of this market and then the usefulness of the market in terms of managing risk of the firm. But then we're going to study that next week in our class, Fundament of Financial Markets. So make sure you come and then share with us your thought, and we'll discuss more about derivative markets. Okay, this is for you know financial market students. Now, next one, I think this is a really interesting question about the printing money by government. With the fast pace of printing money by the government around the world, so do you think there will be a shock in demand of USD leading to its worthlessness, like devaluation?
Um,
I guess this is in terms of the COVID-19. So the government with, stimulus packages, they bring out money more than ever. And then what do you think about the consequences on the USD?
well, that's a very interesting question and also a
Yeah,
very difficult one. I think you can see that the dollar has been weakening this year due to the fact that both the interest rate is kept at
hmm,
0% and a stimulus package coming from the fiscal side. So we can see that in compared to other currencies within the region, the Asian currencies, including the Vietnamese dong, we see that the dollar has been weakening. And there are reasons that I believe that for next year, the interest rate will be kept lower for longer. I'm not sure it will go negative or not, but I'm certain that it will stay zero for quite a long time, given that the economic prospect of the global is still quite behind. Um, so let's like for example in Vietnam, let's look at the USD VND currency pair. If you look up on the exchange rate now, you see that the pair actually has been declining this year, meaning that the Vietnamese dong is strengthened against the dollar. Normally in the past, you would see that the Vietnamese dong would depreciate for about 2 to 3% every year, but in the most recent 2 years, it's actually the other way around. This was due to it's not only because of the dollar weakening because of the printing money, but also of the fact that the Vietnam market, we have a very solid macroeconomic fundamental, and you can see that we are among one of the few countries that have high GDP growth this year,
yeah,
despite the COVID-19. We still
yeah,
register like 2.9% growth, which is very remarkable. We have low inflation, a huge surplus of trade balance this year of, if I remember correctly, of, about $20 billion, the record one, and that help to drive up the value of the local currencies. So in terms of supply and demand, it's not about the dollar weakening, but also the Vietnamese dong actually appreciate in its intrinsic value. Um, we also see that in terms of dollar flow, there's some persistent inflow from the foreign direct investment sources. We have Samsung, we have Apple, Pegatron, LG, all the big names placing factories here and expanding which brings dollar into the country. So in terms of dollar supply, it has increased quite significantly. We have a record high dollar reserve of
Mhm.
almost 92 billions to date, and yeah, all these factors actually help drive the dollar VND rate lower, which means the dollar is weakening against the Vietnamese dong.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope
Thank
that
you.
answered your question.
Yeah. Thank you. The next one, which is about the cryptocurrency. What is your opinion on the replacement of paper currency or fiat by cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, for example? What do you think?
To be honest, I don't know. I actually have a good friend of mine who is an expert in cryptocurrencies, but I also spent some time looking into it. But as I started from fundamental as
Yeah.
a fundamental trader,
Mhm.
I only consider it as an alternative investment, and I don't think, in my own opinion, I don't think that it will replace the hard currency anytime soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can only work as like an alternative investment.
For the short term, right? But then we'll
Yes,
see for the long term. We'll see, right? Things
yes,
can change, right? Okay.
sure, yeah,
Yeah.
certain.
Thank you. Um, Now another question: which strategy is more important today, micro or macroeconomic analysis?
I think it's equally important. I personally, as a trader, I tend to combine them together because normally I will take a top-down approach.
Mm,
We will set out a medium to long-term trend for
yeah.
next year. Like I forecast next year interest rate to be in this certain range, and then from day-to-day basis, we will monitor it very closely, and then to apply the technical analysis,
Mm,
not those fancy charts, but just the daily movement of exchange rates and interest rates to see how it evolves, and then we constantly update our views. But we tend to maintain our you know strong conviction about the medium to long term view of movement of some particular assets, and then we will see like monitor on an intraday basis in terms of supply and demand of those for example those currencies, and then we will act accordingly.
mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. Students, because there are so many questions, which is good, but then we have limited time, like half an hour to go. So I will select some questions. And for the question that, Mr. Min, because we don't have a lot of time, so for these questions that haven't been answered yet in this session, then please feel free to send me an email. Then, if it's possible, I will pass it on to Mr. Min. Okay. Um, Now, as a trader, how do you think about the domestic and global financial systems? This is like holistic, like big picture,
Oh
right?
yes.
And it can take a day, right,
Yes.
to answer this question. This is really interesting. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I think it's in a much better place in compared to the last 10 years, in compared to the most recent financial crisis. Um, we have put in a stronger regulatory framework, both locally and globally. For example, at HSBC, we follow the Basel III for capital adequacy to ensure that we have sufficient capital to provide enough buffer in terms of risk management. And we also follow a lot of EOS rules like the VOCAs to ensure that we don't do excessive trading to manipulate the market or something like that. So I think the system is much healthier, and I am certain that it can be in a better position to absorb any shocks. So at the beginning of this year, when the COVID-19 actually started, some of the experts actually worried that there will be a global financial crisis coming out of this. because of all those macro stocks. But um, mm, to some degree, I think that it still can happen. It still can happen. I'm not saying that it won't, but it may not come from the financial. It may not started from the financial space, because again, I think, in my opinion, is in a much better position in compared to, the past few years. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Our next question, I think this is really interesting, and many students, many people would like to know that whether it is illegal for people, typical people, not commercial banks or institutions, to trade forex.
Um, no, it's not legal. I'm sure of that. You are not allowed to do proprietary trading of FX in local market in Vietnam.
Yeah,
The regulation is very strict about that, and I think there are a lot of news on the newspaper about those companies who are like trying to persuade you to enter into those
yeah,
schemes to trade FX. Sorry, um, but don't just don't. I I I think it's not worth it. The law is not allowed to do that, and also it won't be a profitable trade for you.
yeah. Yeah, great. Thank you. Another question is, what makes you change your career, to the current job, which I think much more stressed,
Well,
intense, right?
I I I actually spent two slides explaining about that. I think that really depends on the personality of the people. For myself, I like to take on challenges, and I want to come to work knowing very little things ahead of me. So uh, maybe I like surprises more. So
Mhm.
for the as I said earlier about the finance job that I first took, it's not bad at all. It's not suits to my personality. My traits, because uh, the job is quite is too stable for me, I think. So when I moved to treasury, I agree that the job is very intense, but in um, in return, it is very rewarding. You have this, when you have close out a deal and you make a profit on that, you have this achievement feeling, and it's very exciting to work, and also it pays well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you. Now I see several students are interested in technical analysis and fundamental analysis. So they asking, I see that there are a lot of traders in Vietnam who prefer using technical analysis to fundamental analysis in forex market. So can you share with us your opinion on that, and like the advantages and disadvantages of both of the strategy in the forex market?
I think that the technical analysis is more for the
Mm,
short-term action. And personally, I'm not a fan of the technical analysis because think that is more for the backtesting purposes
mm,
rather than to forecast anything. But I still use it every day as as an addition to the fundamental analysis.
mm-hmm.
There are a lot of people on the internet, saying about all these types of chats and all these
Yeah.
types of indicators, working on those technical analysis on those currency pairs. But I think at the end of the day, will come to it will still come to the fundamental size of the
Mm,
currency. It's important that, regardless of whatever method that you use, it's important that you have to to define the intrinsic value of that currency.
yeah.
You find the abnormal pricing, and you find the the maybe the undervalue or overvalue of that currencies, and that is where you make a profit on that. So yes, both of those techniques have the advantages and disadvantages. I think it complements to each other.
Yeah.
And we should not to rely on any one of them. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Now, the next question is, among the three markets, bond, equity, and derivative, which market that banks or trader are taking more focus on, and which market is your interest? So two parts. So we have three market: bonds, equity, and derivative. So in your opinion, which market that banks and trader focus more? And another question is like second part, which market is your interest?
Well, first I have to say that the bank is not allowed to trade in equity. That is for the securities companies. So we only trade in FX and bonds. For the FX markets, the volume is much higher in terms of number of trades, in terms of number of clients involved, in terms of the system that involved in. So the FX space is more busy in compared to bonds. For bonds, it's mostly banks that are players in the market. So we only trade on the interbank market, and we normally we use our own capital to trade rather than to trade for our clients. So in terms of flows, I see that FX have more transactional flows from the clients, where bonds is more about proprietary trading. Yeah, so compare between those two. For myself, I actually started off as an FX trader. I work in FX and then moved to bonds and stick to that until now. So you can see that I prefer bonds more. Why is that? Is because I think it's again it suits me more. I think because it's more challenging and it's more focused on a more medium to longer view rather than like a day trader. Yeah.
Thank you. Another question is from the effect of political issue. So as the world is waiting for the U.S. election result, I wonder how much do the political aspect affect the financial market, and which market will have the greatest impact?
Well, I think I have to pass this question back to you, Ling.
Well, you know what? I would say um, the effect would be yes, for sure we have some effect because the U.S. is a leading country, and then the uncertainty, policy uncertainty, economic or even political uncertainty will sure have a spillover effect. Domestic effect in the U.S. market and also the spillover effect to other countries as well. But then, you know what? Actually, there has been research about it, increasing interest of research about the spillover effect of the uncertainty, the shock, political shock, or even economic shock in the U.S. to other countries. But the results are quite heterogeneous. Like it vary across different countries because different countries have different regulatory framework, economic growth. So my answer to the question is that it depends. It will have an effect for sure, but it depends of the currency and the country that you're looking at. Yeah. I'm not sure. Yeah, I think this is it's general, but this is the most appropriate answer that I'm having at the moment because there is no universal answer for this, and then we're still doing research, much research about it. Okay. Now we have several questions about Bitcoin, but I would say I would leave it for the course, cryptocurrency and crypto finance course, guys. We have the industry session of Bitcoin and for Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and fintechs as well next week on the 6th of June, on the 6th of January. So I will leave them for the guest speaker because he will focus more on financial market, traditional financial markets. Is that okay, Mr. Min?
Yes, certainly. Thank you.
So now I have a very interesting question. From your perspective, what are the potential risks that might arise along with the development of the derivative market. So first of all, the risk, the potential risk that might rise along with the development of the derivative market. Yeah, that will be the first part, and then I will read the second part after you answer the first one.
The risk is, I think, that comes from two sources. The first one is the regulations. If the regulators doesn't catch up with the development of the markets, there will be abuse of that. There will certainly be people who take on the gray areas of the regulations to bypass it and to uh, harass the rules and make illegal profit based on that. And that also the second part of that is that the end user of the derivatives itself, because if you do not have a complete knowledge about the products, about the markets, then it can be quite dangerous for any users, be it even for a trader or even for a company who enter into those transactions, because if you don't know it well, then it can really damage your pocket, I think. Yeah.
Thank you. And the second part is about disintermediary. What disintermediary or disintermediation become challenging owing to technology advancement or the maturity of the developed market like the US? Disintermediation, then uh, what do you think about this new trend, disintermediation?
Actually, we welcome those development in HSBC ourselves. For the FX desk, we actually develop our own tools and system to set up like an platform for the clients who can connect to it digitally and to see all the pricings on the researches. So I think those fintech or on those development in terms of tech space is very welcome in the market, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And then the question, the last question, you have stated that GDP of Vietnam is increasingly significantly due to the COVID-19. Is it really because of COVID-19 that made many multinational companies like Samsung move their factory from Wuhan to Vietnam, or are there any other factor?
Well, first, let me clarify that the GDP of Vietnam is not increasing significantly due to the COVID-19, but in fact, it is. We have the slowest growth in the past 10 years. But on the bright side of that is, in compared to other countries in the regions or even in the global, we are amongst I think, the top 10 countries that still register a very strong growth in terms of GDP. We still having a positive growth in terms of GDP growth despite all the COVID-19 situations. So that is a positive impact to the economy, and I think what drives those numbers is, yes, it's some part of that is from the persistent inflow of foreign direct investment from those companies who set up new factories and expanding their existing business here. And I don't think that they like some newspapers said that they shift the factory from China to Vietnam, but I think they will consider Vietnam as an expansion and as an alternative location for their factories and for their manufacturing hubs. So I think that's a very good news for Vietnam. And also we have moved up in the supply chain, in the global supply chain, that will also add value to the GDP growth of Vietnam this year. We have very strong export coming both from the FDI sector and also from the domestic as well. And we have very stable currencies, very stable FX market this year. We have stable inflation, which is below 4% target of the National Assembly, and we have built a very strong FX reserves. So all the factors that put into place that have to still drive the country above the in compared to other peers that we still ahead of them. So yeah, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, thank you very much. And then we have a new question from our student who are very interested in applying in HSBC. What skill or knowledge I should prepare for applying at HSBC? In your CV, are there anything you have that the recruiter are interested in?
Again, I have presented it in a slide earlier, so you can read up some of the skills. I think it's very relevant for global markets, or for I think for any jobs, either at HSBC or at any other companies or other banks, is that you have to be professional, to have the you have the to be to have the integrity, you have to you know at the fundamental is you have the knowledge, and um, um, yes, so I think are there anything you have that the recruiters are interested in? um, I think I can say it depends. um, yeah, it really depends on the requirements
Mm.
of the job. So yeah.
Yeah, can I just add some things here?
Yes.
I would say from, from an academic perspective, also, got some sharing from my previous students who are now working at different industry, that I would say the hard skill would be the knowledge. For sure, it will very important, right? For example, if you would like to work in a global market, then you should know about FX, should know about, um, market maker, market taker, and then bonds, and different other instruments as well, derivatives. So for sure, the knowledge is really important. And beside that, as you just shared in your slide about the interpersonal skills, integrity, professionalism. So these are the soft skills, right? Yeah, these soft
Yes.
skill, the student should also, beside the hard skill, the knowledge, you also should add in, your CVDs, soft skills. It seems to many people that these soft skills are sort of not that important. It's quite general, but actually, I would be, from my experience, when you work with people, interpersonal skill, teamwork, problem solving, communication, it's just really important. And for the student, if you can see that during our trading session, then you work with the counterparty, like bank work with corporation, and then you negotiate, right? So negotiation skill, and then when you have conflict, problem solving skill. So all of these, it could make a portfolio when you apply for a job at HSBC or any other company. Then when you get into an interview, then you can share with the your employer that you've you might have not, exposed to a lot of work in real working life experience, but then in at university, you work in team, you do in a simulated environment. So these would really, enrich your soft skills, and these are just really important as well. Okay. Um, guys, do you have any other question? We have 15 minutes to go. Now, in the meantime, I have another question for Mr. Min. Uh, I, you know what, you talk about fundamental analysis, and you're a FA person, right? A fundamental analysis team. I do. I mean, I'm also really I'm also really more fundamental analysis than technical one, even though totally agree with you that these two should complement each other. And fundamental analysis, like top-down approach, will be more, suitable for a long-term view. But then, from the fundamental perspective, what are the factors that affect exchange rate? From your experience, from your opinion, what do you think, generally speaking?
Well, I think that the main factors that affect exchange rate would come from two main sources.
Mm-hmm,
One is the macroeconomic factors,
mm-hmm,
such as the all the key indicators like GDP, CPI, trade balance,
Mm-hmm.
foreign direct and indirect investment,
Mm-hmm.
which normally affect the medium to longer term trend of the exchange rate. And the second source is the supply and demand balance of the foreign currency in the market,
Mm.
which can then drive the short term movement of that exchange rate in the market. Um, yeah, like the example that I gave earlier about the USD VND currency pair, which we can see that the pair has been dropping this year, is because
Mm-hmm.
of uh, the macro factors, the fundamental of the country is the prospect is very good.
Mm-hmm.
We have high GDP growth, the low inflation, the surplus of trade balance, all that kind of things. And in
Mm-hmm.
terms of supply and demand, which affect the short-term trend, you can see that the State Bank of Vietnam has been able to build up a very significant FX reserves this year. So
Yeah.
all these factors have actually help drive the dollar VND rate
Mm.
lower. Yeah, like in the example that I gave earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Um, Hi guys, do you have any other question for Mr. Min? Please type it in the chat box and I can publish, and then Mr. Min will be able to address your questions. So if not, then we will end our session today. And thank you very much again, Mr. Min, for your insight, for the time you take to share with us all of these interesting and very helpful information. Thanks very much. Really appreciate it. And I hope you will have a lot of good health success in the new year. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Ling. Thanks for today's session, and thanks everyone for bearing with me today. And happy holidays, and stay healthy and take care.
Thank you. Take care. Bye
Thanks.
bye,
Bye.
everyone.